What is nuclear safety culture and why is it important? We know from the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission there are laws and regulations that govern the nuclear industry and licensees in particular, which is how the CNSC operates. But in the context of nuclear safety culture, what we have to realize is it's part of the way the management system is framed and the expectations thereof. So the CNSC has prepared, in addition to their governance in law, they provided what's called a reg doc. So reg docs are guidance documents. They set out expectations for what the CNSC is looking for as far as licensees are concerned. But it also provides an excellent framework for the rest of the industry and the supply chain to learn from. Reg Doc 212 provides us the definition of nuclear safety culture, which is the characteristics of the work environment. Characteristics are, what do you see in the work environment? How does it feel? How do people operate in a place where people perform these nuclear activities? And when we think of nuclear activities for the work environment, we have to go beyond just field work where people readily understand touching and handling tools, but it also incorporates knowledge work, design work, procurement activities, includes the envelope of commissioning, regulatory affairs, broadly bringing in contractors or other suppliers into your work environment to support you or giving work to other suppliers. So what are the characteristics of that holistic work environment, such as the values, rules, and common understandings that influence workers' perceptions and attitudes reflect the importance that the organization places on safety. Values, rules, and common understandings. We're going to talk about that in the next few slides. And for that purpose, the influence is something where we change people's attitudes, we change people's at-risk perceptions, and in that sense, they are able to better understand how the organization expects them to perform, what the behaviors are, and that the results and the behaviors combine together to give a desired level of performance where safety and security and quality, for that matter, are the overarching outcome. It's an important concept to understand that this safety culture fits inside a service provider organization in a specific way. So what we're trying to do when we do our work inside these organizations is that our product or service that we provide to our clients helps the facility perform its nuclear activities in a manner that assures that they protect the environment, which is a broader concept of the environment, includes the work environment, and where workers are protected as well as the public are protected from any harms in the outcome of those nuclear activities. The how of that protection can affect many areas of the business, including conceptually elements of nuclear safety and security, industrial or conventional safety, as well as radiological safety. There's environmental safety and environmental protection aspects. There's facility safety issues that we need to be mindful of, including productivity within that facility, as well as data management. And all of these together really are the envelope of safety. Some people refer to safety as quality, depending on the service provider. Quality, safety, and security outcomes are effectively what we're trying to drive at, and it's the culture that helps glue those things together. When you're thinking about these concepts, you're going to say, well, what could go wrong, right? Why does this culture have to be at a high level of integrity or high reliability? What we're trying to do is make sure we can prevent or stop an error or mitigate an event from any form of threat, be it internal or external, that could cause an impact to nuclear safety and security. So what does that mean? There's a risk, depending on how they're assessing and doing the field work, where you could have, say, an impact on criticality or safety function in terms of how the station operates. There could be inappropriate information or physical access to systems and tools that could cause a potential harm to the safety margins of the station. From an industrial occupational perspective, there's lost time injuries, there's medically treated aids. Radiological safety-wise, you could have an unplanned or no exposure to ionizing radiation, depending on the scope of work that's being performed. From an environmental safety impact, one of the aspects of the threat could be an unplanned or uncontrolled discharge or emission of a harmful substance. And this can be anywhere. It could be at the client site or it could even be inside own shops. Relative to facility safety, where the activities are being performed, there's aspects of system impairment. You could damage equipment or tooling, or also you can impact the maintenance sequence sequence and calibration of tooling. And not least, but we also have a data management obligations. You have to protect and ensure that data is properly stored and handled. It's not corrupted. It's put in the right place with the right access controls. And then there's the overarching element of cybersecurity, which comes into assuring that this information is held in a manner that it can't be tampered with or it can't be corrupted, either advertently by someone trying to impact or inadvertently, which can happen when cybersecurity controls become weak. So all of these are elements of a service provider view of safety within the performance of work for nuclear. And embedded underneath all of this is how do you get work done? And that's where the culture landscape fits in. So when we talk about the culture landscape, we have to be attentive to language. Language is critically important. So here are some examples of how people express the concept of culture without using, I'll call it the textbook definitions. Some people will say, well, really, the culture is how we work together. It's how I expect people to perform. It's what we share as a group to say, this is our normal way of doing things. And some of these things may be practices. They may not actually be in the procedures or in the operating manuals for tools. It's really a concept that actually could govern the way people think and interact with each other in teams. So the culture of teams is critically important. How we learn and grow is dependent on how this culture allows us to breathe and do things so that we can become more proficient knowledge and field workers. And in some cases, if the culture doesn't support that growth, then the organization doesn't grow either, and it doesn't prosper. Another language that people use is they say, well, it's a healthy culture. And that healthy culture supports safe and secure outcomes in the work. Some people call it quality, which from a service provider perspective is effectively how the standards are written for performance in the management system. And then other people, if they're thinking about it on a very local and very personal level, will say, well, when the culture is healthy, I feel safe. I feel safe. That word feeling is critically important because that's the feedback that they've processed through their years of experience and understanding of the work. And when they feel safe, they can express their thoughts, their ideas, their feelings, their concerns. And all of this is very important in a nuclear context because we want to make sure that the work is done effectively and we're not missing something that would have been a very important thing to manage the margin of the design of a tool, for example. And this has to be an environment where there isn't fear or consequential acts of reprisal. So if someone reports an issue and all of a sudden they get, I call it not picked for the next job, that in itself, if we know there's an association, is a form of reprisal from a psychological safety perspective. And that's a really important thing that we understand as we go through the assessment. So a lot of people think of safety culture and they think it's this big fuzzy thing. And actually it's not. It's very practical. In this slide, you're looking at a concept called work as imagined and work as done. So in the top level, you'll see things like knowledge work, such as design of tools, accountabilities and roles that go with those tools, the environment in which that work is to be performed in. High hazard environment has a specific design as opposed to, say, outdoor work where there's no radiological risk. And that people imagine what that design function has to look like so they can build the right tools and systems for people to perform work. But it's all theoretical. The other part of this that goes with it is work and production planning. So when you think of project control and project management, these are actually very long-standing practices that allow work to be controlled effectively so we can hit our goals and achieve what the client is looking for. But that unto itself is a plan, and a plan is work as imagined. We actually don't know how it's going to be performed until people start actually working the plan. Again, that's work as imagined. And then also when we do the safety management pieces, so when you have a learning organization, you have a form of a CAP, a corrective action program, and that allows people to be alerted to things that need to be improved, or investigations that need to be performed, or assessments or audits. But again, when you're in that space, you're thinking about what could have, should have happened. You actually weren't there. So you're imagining that space. So we're all imagining at this highest level. When you implement the design, implement the plan, you're actually getting a view of how work is done, but you're using that higher level perspective of how the safety culture should be structured as opposed to how it's being experienced by the people that are doing that work. Again, the work as done is the feedback we're going to get through the interview process as well as the rest of the assessment. So we need to be mindful when we're doing this work that work really is a process of continual adaptation. So you can think of workers, me, you, whoever's inside the organization at any level. They understand within their own frame of reference, within their own mind, that they know what they're doing. But fundamentally, the only way you know if anyone else is doing anything is to ask questions, right? Supporting that questioning attitude, to be able to raise your concerns or be able to get information to make sure we understand how we're collaborating together as a team. And people are very adept, very flexible in some ways at adapting to changing environments and changing conditions and changing plans and tactics that need to be done, need to be deployed to get that work done. But again, it's really critical also for a healthy safety culture to be in place that the leaders recognize they have a very special and key role to make sure people have that good shared mental model for the work. In other words, resolving the questions between people, as well as encouraging and reinforcing the acceptable behaviors, right? Some of the behaviors we ask for in nuclear, they're not comfortable behaviors you would see in a lot of public spaces, but they are required. Stop when unsure is a required practice that we need to meet quality, safety, and secure work outcomes. And the leaders have a key role in cleaning up the uncertainty as people adapt the plans, the work as imagined, to the real work environment. Now, some people feel that safety culture is more like an iceberg, and to a great extent that's true, because a lot of the things we see and hear are on the surface. They are the artifacts of the organization. They're the behaviors, they're the key performance indicators, like lost time injury is a key performance indicator. But it's also about the systems people use. How good is this station condition record system to actually help people enter their concerns? How effective is it that we design corrective actions that actually prevent reoccurrence? So those are some of the artifacts. But underneath that, below the waterline, if you want to say, is about I'll call it the 90% of the iceberg. It's the values that the organization expresses, not just the words, but what they actually do. It's the attitudes we have towards each other and those underlying beliefs of what good looks like. And then below that again are the assumptions, that shared understanding that maybe we don't speak about, but it's really driving how the organization performs and how the culture actually helps you to achieve what you're desiring to do. So we've been through several slides that summarize what the characteristics of the work environment are, how values and assumptions can reflect and impact people and their ability to do work safely, securely, and with quality. And what do those words actually mean? What we need to realize is that this is a continuously improvement activity. It's a journey that every company is on, licensees included, but the overarching requirement is to make sure that we understand what this nuclear safety culture is, how it influences people to perform work in a way where the behaviors and the results equal the desired level of performance. It's ultimately important that top management in a company understand that this safety culture is more than a simplified form of work culture. It actually is, how do we make sure we protect the plant? How do we ensure we protect the public and the environment and live up to what is effectively the expectations of society from nuclear? Doing these assessments really strengthen top management to understand where the levels of the organization are sitting, maybe provide some safety leadership improvement in order for the safety culture to hit a desired level of maturity, which is actually a journey of continuous improvement. So from this point forward, I think if you find this material interesting, please reach out to myself and Empirical Assessment Solutions to ensure that you could conduct a future assessment, and that future assessment would be tailored to your work environment, specifically for the size of your company and the nature of your license. Thank you.